let's take a look in Salesforce. And for this training,
Sorry, I
I
must
am
have been on
doing,
mute. Can you hear me now?
yes,
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah,
excellent.
everybody, yeah, so Adam and I are going to tag team here a little bit. Adam, you're going to lead most of it, but there's definitely parts of it where I can jump in. Eric, are you recording this?
Yes, I've started
Okay,
the
great.
recording. Yep.
All right, excellent. Okay, so just as a note, I am doing this training in the full test sandbox. So don't be shocked if you see me changing things on records that are well in the past or adding new awards to accounts that shouldn't have them. We are in a test environment, so nothing we're doing is really going to have any true implications for your production environment. The other thing I'm going to say about this test environment is all emails right now are turned off. So anybody that should normally be receiving notifications about any of these awards, or when we do our receipting training in a few days, that will be turned off as well. We can turn that on if people want to test that, but since the full test sandbox does have all of your production data, we wouldn't want to accidentally email real people with their real email addresses with fake data. So that is why that is turned off at the moment. All right, so awards. I'm not sure how much detail everybody has about the entire account and opportunity structure within Salesforce, but every opportunity is going to be related to an account in Salesforce. And so I am looking at an old award from 2013, and I thought I would start here with one that's long closed and already paid and all of that. And so if we look at the account first, we can see a relationship between an organization, in this case, and all of the opportunities this organization has made. And opportunities in Salesforce don't just encompass things that have already come in. They're things that you're thinking about in the future, things you might apply for next year. It encompasses opportunities in any sort of stage. And what that means is you'll be tracking things that maybe you don't even get, and you'll keep that as a record in Salesforce. And so definitely want to pay attention to the opportunities, what their stage is, so where they are in the process, and make sure you're paying attention to if it has come in or not, or if there's work to do on it. And so we will start with an old award, like I said, and to get from an account to the opportunities beneath, there is this related list. And I've picked one with, more than 50. So if we wanted to see this full list, we could always click on that and scroll through. You can sort this in any order of the fields that are being displayed. So if we wanted to do it most recent to oldest, we could do that. Wanted to do it by amount. Anything we wanted to do, we could sort of sort by what we see here. All right, and to get to that opportunity, you would just click on the one you want to get to, and I already have that open in a new tab. So let's look at this really quickly and sort of go through all of the different fields and what sort of everything means and what is important to you guys. So every opportunity needs to have a name. This is going to be generated by Salesforce automatically. And it's a combination of the account name, the amount, the record type, and the close date. The public name is going to inherit that information, and this is editable. So if you want to have a different public name for an award, you are free to edit that to be in your naming conventions or what makes sense for you guys. The account, it's going to be linked automatically to that account that it's coming from. Primary contact, that would be the person responsible for that award, the main person we are reaching out to. The receipt contact is generally going to be the same as that primary contact, but they can be different. This is the person who should receive any receipts related to that award. Does this organization want to be anonymous? If so, you would check this checkbox, and then this would actually update the account so that future opportunities from this organization would be marked off as anonymous as well. So moving down, and again, we're looking at a closed award. So I'll be talking about this differently when we start setting up a new one, but the amount is, the amount that you're going to receive. Close date, the date, you know that it's going to come in. Again, these can be in multiple installments, so payment dates are going to become important. Then we have foreign currency amount, which is a lot to do with legacy information, but if those do differ, you could put those in. And then we have the award code and the award ID. I'll pause there because I know Peter did some work around how these get populated.
Yeah, the award ID should have it'll either have a legacy code in it from NAV, or it will have a code that is automatically generated for ones that have been created going forward. And the full code just puts the primary funds primary code in front of it.
And just to interject here, one difference between the award codes that we're going to use moving forward and the ones we've used in the past, there is this 4-digit numerical sequence after the A to indicate the award number, and that used to be populated numerically and incrementally based on the parent fund. Now it is going to be populated and incremented universally across all of the awards. So in other words, you don't need to know the full award code with the parent fund prefix in order to distinguish a unique award. There will actually be a 4-digit code after the A that will be unique across the system. So that's an important difference between the award codes going forward and the award codes as we've done them in the past. And I've got a question from Jonathan. What is public name and what is it used for? Is this different from recognition name?
It is different from recognition name. Recognition name is up on the account itself. So if the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation want to be recognized as something else, that would be their recognition name of the organization. Same thing exists for households if they want a different recognition name than what they have. But on the opportunity itself, this is sort of the name for the award that isn't, if you want it to be different than this format that Salesforce generates. I'm not sure exactly what your internal use case was for this public name, but I know there are members of your team who wanted that functionality.
Yeah, it's basically a generic or internal reference name for both of these cases, right? For accounts and for opportunities. And then there's a public or recognition name.
All right, so scrolling down, we are probably going to get into more detailed discussions of campaigns in other trainings and or sessions down the road, but Salesforce definitely is going to expand your use of campaigns. In your historic data from NAV, they weren't really used, but moving forward, you should definitely think about how you want to use campaigns. Do you want one big campaign for all your awards? Do you want separate campaigns for different awards? Just a way of sort of reporting and tracking the way awards are coming in. I would definitely recommend thinking through a campaign structure and applying that to awards moving forward. Looks like we have some more questions about the coding.
Yeah, so is the award coding in sequence for TCI and TCF, or will they be separate? The way that we set it up, and Peter can confirm this, is that the award coding is unique across the entire organization, whether it's in TCI or TCF. Right, Peter?
I don't recall making any distinction between the two. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And then Chelsea is asking, will this apply to awards going forward, or will it involve renaming existing awards? It will apply going forward. So existing awards will keep the codes they have. And then Mary has a question. Is there a field for the funder's award number? I don't see one, but we could certainly put one on here.
Yeah, not that I am aware of.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
But
funders have their own
describe
reference.
that in email, and we could put that into our issue list if we want to work on that.
Yeah.
All right, so next field we see on the right side here is the primary fund. And so funds are an extremely important concept in your system here. And I know we're doing a fund training next week, but what we want to understand here is this. So for awards that are just going to one project or one fund, as they're known now, that will simply be a one-to-one relationship, the primary fund, and it will be allocated to that fund. And we'll get into more details about these allocations in a minute. And just looking at the questions. If you are allocating an award to several projects or several funds, the primary fund is going to be the one that has the most of those allocations. So 51% of the money is being allocated to that fund or project. And so that is the way that will be populated based on the allocations. Of course, if it's a one-to-one relationship like this, it's nice and simple and straightforward. The primary fund TC org, that's pulling directly from the fund itself, whether it's TCI or TCF. And the stage. So the stages in awards go through sort of our standard award process. Are we planning for this award? Is it not submitted? Did we not submit it? Is the LOI submitted? Was it declined? Proposal submitted, declined. No response received. Was it awarded? Was it canceled? All of these come with different probabilities. And so as we see, as I'm moving through these, it's going to change the probability. And in Salesforce, for opportunities, there are really sort of three statuses that an opportunity can have. It can be closed won, which means the money is essentially received, or you can expect those payments to be received. So 100%, and it's in a closed won status. That does not mean it has to be this closed won stage. Awarded is a closed won status. Proposal not needed is a closed won status. And so that can trip some people up. Another state of being would be open, which is somewhere along the process. So LOI submitted, it has a 60% chance of coming in. And so we, would say this is an open award, we're still working on it and securing it, and it would be in the pipeline for awards to come. And then the other state of being would be closed lost. So sort of a 0% possibility of it coming in. LOI declined, things along those lines. And so we want to keep that in mind, especially when we're doing reporting and when we're thinking about some of the automation that's going to occur around awards. And so as we see, this one is closed won, 100% probability, and the money has already been received. So scrolling down, custom fields to organize. These are fields from NAV, essentially, that should probably be organized into new sections. There is some good information in here. So here's a funder's reference number that we were just talking about. Whether you put that up in this main section or create a new section for things like that is up to you guys. But, you know, there's definitely some good information within this section. Moving down, we have our standard sort of award process. So what is the category? What is the source grant? So where is the source of funds when the award came from another TIDES fund? If you want to link it to that. What was the requested amount? So maybe you asked for 500,000, but you only received 372,000. Important information in that distinction. Award requirements website. So you can put that in and have easy access to getting there. Contract number, award program areas. Probably not going to be using this one. This is a standard NPSP field. Might want to take that off the page to avoid confusion because, you know, of all your program areas related to funds. Previous award opportunity. So did you apply for this award last year and get it? Do you want to link those together so you can see that continuation of year over year, award after award? You can link this to previous opportunities. Was the proposal required or not? What's the award contract date? What's the award period start, end date? When's the next award deadline due? Is this award a renewal of a previous award? And apologies, some of this help text is built into NPSP and it refers to grants, which is the way NPSP refers to this type of opportunity. But obviously grants means something very different to you guys. So if you see that language, that is just a remnant of NPSP.
And we can change that going forward. Yeah.
Is this a suspended award? And is the award invalid? Next section I want to talk about is the payment information. So how many payments are there on this award? How much has been received? What's the remaining balance? What's the write-off amount? What is the total payment amount? So that takes the payment amount received and payment write-off amount to get the total payment amount. And do not automatically create payments. I've actually included some functionality in this sandbox and in production where when you create a new award, it's not automatically going to create payments for you, whether this box is checked or not moving forward. So that should save you some time. And I'll talk about that when we create a new award.
Hey, Adam, a couple of questions.
Yes.
Jonathan is asking, why is the foreign currency amount greater than the amount, given that this is in US dollars? These values appear to be incorrect. First of all, you're looking at old data that was, we realized that we had a lot of foreign currency issues on the previous data load. So don't take any of these figures to heart, because even though, you know, the vast majority of the data is there, there are some discrepancies. There are some duplicate funds. There are some foreign currency adjustments that needed to be made. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. You're looking at the sandbox data and not production data, and they are aware of that issue. And then Chelsea is asking, is the probability on the award stage a required field? And if the probability isn't known, what would you suggest we enter?
Good question. So probability is not, it's sort of required, but it's tied to stage. The stage is going to set the probability. You saw that I can edit this probability. Most of you as users will not be able to. I'm a system admin, and I have the ability to edit, make my own custom probabilities if I wanted to, based on the stage type. But for the rest of you, that's going to be hard-coded. So they're going to just come in at those probabilities that they are set.
And listen, these are best guesses based on the input that we receive from everyone. So if they need to be changed down the road, we can do so.
Yep. And there are ways of opening up that to other users to be able to edit probability if that's something you want to do. But for the most part, that's just going to be set by the system. And again, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. You know, if it's saying 60, but you really think it's 75% or 90%, you know, that's sort of the whole point of entering a lot of these in advance. You're getting sort of a pipeline moving forward, and that probability will average out over time and amounts of awards you're putting in. So, you know, it doesn't have to be pinpoint precise there. All right, moving down past payments, award roles. So again, we're going to get into this in more detail when we get into our fund conversation. But there are certain award roles that get filled out automatically based on what the primary fund is. And those have to do with the fund roles on that fund. And so those fields are the director, development coordinator, secondary contact, development manager, and DAF program manager. Those will get automatically filled out based on information on the primary fund. Now, you do have the ability to edit those on the opportunity. So if for some reason this shouldn't be Natalie, you can go in and change that to a different contact. These are linked to contact records, not user records. So any contact within the system can be added to these appropriately. Scrolling down, we then get into our related lists. And so who is receiving, sorry, looking at a question here. We're going to get into payments in a minute and how we're going to set up payments. All right, so here is who is receiving credit for an award. Does somebody receive credit as a donor? Is someone an influencer? Is someone, you know, should receive soft credit for that award? You can add, you know, those as needed and whatever role you would like to put for them. Those roles are configurable as well. So if you do want to add to that list, you definitely can. Payments, I am not going to edit the payments on this existing. I think I cut out there for a second. Payments, what I was saying is I'm not going to do anything on these payments on one that's old, but when we do a new one together, that's when I will start to, you know, talk about this section in more detail. Award deadlines. These are, and I am not, this again, problem with the data. Don't worry that these names are crazy and confusing, but they would be, oh, this is a report. When is it due? When was it submitted? You are going to build these out for all of your deadlines related to an award. And I'll do that, you know, together when we build a new one. There are several reasons you're tracking it as a custom object instead of tasks on the object. It will allow for much easier reporting across all awards, across all you know, users and contacts. It can be related to contacts instead of users. It can be, you know, it's just a more reportable and functional way of using sort of this type of tracking. You can, of course, assign an activity or task on top of these deadlines if you want to go to that level of detail, but the deadlines provide for more streamlined, simplified reporting sort of across everything.
And I think we've already created a report, actually, if I'm not mistaken, Adam, that will provide anyone with a list of pending award deadlines and the awards they apply to and the dates.
Mm-hmm. If not, it's a simple report to create. All right. And then scrolling down, we have our allocations. And so what projects, programs is this going to? All right. So now let's go and take a look at an award that hasn't come in as a little difference. All right. So here we have one from City of Toronto. It's been awarded, but if we scroll down to the payments, we see that there is one payment scheduled, towards the end of last year. Maybe this came in, and this is just a, quirk in the historical data. But let's say it hasn't come in yet. So what we would do is we would first make sure that the allocation is to the right place. We want to make sure that the allocations are set on the opportunity before we start messing with the payments, because the payments are going to inherit those allocations on the opportunity. And so this is allocated to one fund. If that's all we want, that is good. And we can just come into this payment, click on it, and mark it as paid, give it a payment date, any sort of check reference number, payment method, anything else you would like to add based on your the additional custom fields here. Sure. Do you want to?
I think if you just check the paid box, I think it fills in that payment date too automatically with today's date. I think that's correct.
Okay, let's go back to the award.
Yeah, you can't mark something as being paid unless it's actually in a status of 1. And, that logic can be changed, but that's a protection rule in there.
There we go. That's correct. Awarded is not a closed won stage. It's that stage before you have received payment. It's got that 100% probability, which was throwing me off, but it is not actually a closed won technical stage. All right, so we can mark this as paid and hit save. Payment date fills in. Do you want to talk about any NetSuite integration there, Peter?
Yeah, so once you're at this point, once you've checked the paid box and you've saved it, this record will go to NetSuite as a revenue. Make sure that I'm using the right terms here, but it'll create a record in there. It'll do a couple of things. It will make sure that there is that the primary contact is also connected to it. The primary contact on the opportunity is connected to it. And it'll also make sure that the recipient also is created or linked to in NetSuite. So there are a couple of associated pieces of information that also get either created or looked up in NetSuite for one of these payments. That creates a revenue record in NetSuite that has several different pieces of information. And you know what, let's, yeah, this might be, do we want to cover all this now, or should we?
Do you want me to just create a new award and we go from there?
No, I can, well, if you scroll down, so there are a couple other pieces of information here. And the related lists, there are allocations. If you want to introduce what that is that the same as the allocation that we were looking at on the other?
Sure. So let's create a new award. This might be easier to start from scratch and see what is going on, because I'll create several allocations. All right. So let's go up to this fake organization and create a new award. And I'll do that through this new account donation button. The fact that it says donation, again, that's an NPSP thing. Don't worry that it says donation. You have the ability to change its record type. We're going to say award. There's the name. We're going to put in a primary contact here. We'll put in a receipt contact as well, same person. Amount, make something up here, $10,000. And we're just at the beginning of this process. I, am just thinking about this award in the future. So I'm going to put in, we are thinking that it'll come in, by the end of the year. I am going to link this to a fund, and I am just picking one at random here. And the stage will say planning. So here I am just going to sort of stop what I'm doing. I am going to point out that a lot of these award roles are blank at the moment. And I am going to hit save. Okay, there is a question about the designation fund still not known. You can leave it blank, just fill it in when you know it. But yeah, it is not required.
You're talking about the primary fund? Is that the question?
Yes, that looks like the question. Yeah.
It could be blank at first, but you can't obviously get to a closed stage with that missing.
Yep. If it's, way in the planning stage and you don't know, you can leave it blank. But yeah, if you're anywhere close to closing that off, you definitely are going to need that. All right. So scrolling down, we see that the director and the DAF program manager were already automatically filled in for us based on the information on this fund. And again, we'll get into that in a later training. Also, we see award code and award ID were generated for us automatically. So let's scroll down.
I should say the award ID, which is also known as the award code, that field is automatically generated based on the primary fund. So if you don't have that yet, there is no award code that gets generated either, because the award code is based on information about the fund that it's going to.
Yep.
So once you have that and you fill it in, that's when the award code gets generated.
Yep. Good point. All right. So scrolling down, we are going to then, we would put in information about the award. When's the start date, end date? Is it a renewal? I'm going to leave a lot of this blank for the purposes of our training. You know how to fill out fields in Salesforce. Scrolling down is when we would get to that award deadline section. And so I would come in and say, oh, okay, I need an LOI for fake organization, $10,000 award, and what was the date? Whatever name you want to give it that is meaningful. We can have different deadline types. Right now, it looks like we just have reports. I would definitely recommend having LOIs, proposals, all sorts of other things in this drop-down list, easily configurable though. Description, sort of free-form text, award deliverable requirements, more free-form text. When is it due? Oh, the LOI is due sometime in April. And hit save. All right. Scrolling back to the award, there's some automation that's happening. The next award deadline due date is April 14th. We can continue to add award deadlines, and that will get updated as well. And so we have sort of the next one available directly on the opportunity itself, but all of them available in the related list.
Okay, Adam, we've got a couple of questions here.
Okay.
What happens to past records when the fund program manager, or I guess any other role for that matter, changes?
That's a good question. We actually went over that in some detail last week or the week before.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, nothing. There is too much potential for things to go wrong in automating that without that being a perfectly sort of solid, in the case that the payment is still outstanding, we do this. If everything's written off, we do that. If everything's closed, won, and paid off, we do this other thing. It would really take some complex logic in order to automate that. So instead, what we have is nothing is going to update the opportunities that already exist based on a fund role changing. And so instead, what happens is the person who changes that role on the fund itself will get a task assigned to them that will send them an email that includes a link to a report that they can use to go clean up the opportunities that are related. Okay, these are the 10 opportunities I'm going to have to change the director on because the director changed. And so right now we have it as a manual process, but the person who's doing that is going to have the information they need to make those changes efficiently and quickly.
And let's suppose you had more than 10 opportunities. For example, right now in the system, we've got Rochelle, I should say, on a whole bunch of past opportunities, and we probably would want to make a mass update in that respect, where you have dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of records that need to be updated. Well, we generate a report, and then Jeremy could go ahead and perform a mass update and change the value to some other person's name if need be.
Yeah, there is nothing preventing mass updates on that. Sort of the way this automation works is it's just sort of set by the primary fund. If you make changes on the opportunity itself, those changes will stick. Another reason we wouldn't want to automate if something changed on the fund itself, because what if someone made a manual change that was more important than what the fund said? And so there are a whole host of reasons we don't have it updating when things on that fund change. But yeah, these are completely editable after they've been populated the first time.
Okay. And then Chelsea's asking, can the deliverable requirements field include either an attachment or a link, like to Box or a website?
Yes. So what you saw when you're creating a new record in Salesforce, you're only seeing the fields that you can edit on that record in the moment. So what is editable to you? So what that doesn't include is everything that is a related list or anything that's a formula field or things along those lines. And so if we go back to that one I actually created before and click on it,
record first.
Yep, we see a notes and attachments related list. We see activities that we can log if you want to log activities on top of these deadlines. We see some formula fields that are pulling in information directly from the opportunity. And so yes, the record itself is far more configurable.
Okay. And then Ryan's asking, are we able to pull in award information that hasn't yet been received into NetSuite for reporting purposes? And yes, we just need to develop a report in Salesforce with the necessary criteria. And you tell us what that criteria is. Eventually, you know, you're going to get good enough that you'll be able to design your own reports. That's the hope anyway. But if it's a report that you need and maybe it should be shared with a whole bunch of other people, and you're not quite sure how to set it up, and you can determine the criteria with us, and then we can develop the report for you.
All right, excellent. Okay.
And then
So,
one other question.
Yep.
So Emily is asking about how do we charge overhead on payments, and maybe that is a question more for Peter.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. We'll get there when I start creating payments for this. So hold on 1 minute. So, all right. Scrolling down, we then have our allocations. And let's say this one's a little bit more complicated. Let's say we're splitting this out into a couple different ones. So what we would do is we would click Manage Allocations. And we would find the available funds that we wanted to allocate it to. Oh, we want, and again, choosing at random here. Apologies if this makes no sense. We want it to go to these 3 funds. But we do want the, you know, oh, it's taking a second to load here. Interesting. I will take a look at that after this. Let's see what's going on. But let's try that again with 3 different funds. All right. Okay, let's just do 2. And let's, all right. I do not know why that error is happening. I apologize. Let's just try this with 2 and see what happens. I will get this to our developers after this training today to see what's going on. As we see, as we are putting in amounts, it's showing us against the total amount of the award what is not allocated, how much has been allocated, and if there is a problem, it's going to be highlighted in red. And so, oh, we're allocating too much here. Let's, change that around. It'll recalculate in a second here. There we go. Total amount, allocated amount, not allocated. Perfect. Let's save. Okay, so now we have this allocated to 2 different funds. 7,500 going to one, 2,500 going to the other. We see that the one that is the greater one is the primary fund. And now we're pretty set and sure that this is going to come in a set number of payments. So what we would do is come to the payments related list and click schedule payments. From here, we would say, how many payments is it? 1 through 12, let's just keep things sort of simple here. Let's say 2. Interval period between them, 1 month, weeks, years, 2 months, weeks, years. You have some flexibility on the way those are being set. Let's say every 3 months, a payment's going to come in. What is the date of the first payment? And let's say, sometime in the future here. All right. So let's calculate those payments. Again, you still have flexibility. This is just sort of doing some heavy lifting for you. But if you know they're going to be slightly different, you can start to modify them here. So, okay, the first one's coming in August. Second one isn't really coming in till the beginning of next year. So let's do that. And you know what? It's actually coming in, most of it is coming in that first payment, and they're just leaving a little bit in that second payment. Again, if something has already come in when you're scheduling these payments, you have the ability to mark it as paid right then and there when you're doing the scheduling. And we'll go ahead and create those payments that are unpaid. All right, excellent. Now we see 2 payments have been created. And what's important to note here, bringing us back to where we were looking at the payments before, is the allocations on the opportunity are going to be reflected down on these payments now. So if I click on this first payment of $9,000, it's going to have those allocations in the same proportion as they were on the opportunity. So because it was 2/3 to 1, or no, it was 3/4 to 1 and 1/4 to the other, that's the same proportional amount of those allocations you see on this payment. Again, these are editable on the payment level. So if this really is, $8,000 to this fund and $1,000 to this other one, you could go in and edit these allocation records. That is going to be important to do before you mark something as paid. I also want to sort of show the way these will stay in sync with the opportunity. So at the moment, let's go back to that opportunity. If something were to change about those allocations before anything is marked as paid, if we click Manage Allocations again, let's take off that one. Let's put on something else. Let's change that proportion. Okay, not sure why that was the wrong amount for a second there. And let's hit save. If we go back to one of those payment records and scroll down to the bottom, and I refresh the page, we see that that new amount proportion and new funds are taken into account. These are going to stay in sync with what happens on the opportunity if the opportunity is changed. And that happens to the point of it being marked as paid. Once it's paid, those allocations are sort of locked and set. If something changes on the opportunity, it will not update a paid payments allocations. And I think that is where Peter wanted to possibly pick up.
Yeah, well, that's true, and that's critical because obviously once it's already been paid, that's gone into the finance system, and it may have already been, the check may have already been, processed. So, so the other thing that you want to show on here is if you scroll down on and look at one of the allocations, if you, just click on one of those. So this actually these are the individual allocations for one payment. This is one allocation for one payment. So what is the proportion or the amount of that payment that is going into a specific fund? So when these allocation records are created, that overhead percentage that you see there is, if you hover over the help text, it's actually pulled in automatically as configured on that fund, and then the amount just below it is calculated from that percentage. You can come in here once this record already exists and edit that overhead percentage if you want to. But that's what by default is going to happen. So that overhead amount is what in NetSuite is going to actually be pulled out of this fund and put into I'm not sure how to describe where it goes into, the overhead payment fund. But that's the amount that's actually taken out from that fund for this transaction. That will happen, and that all happens when the payment is marked as paid. I can show you a specific, if you want to give me control of the screen for just a second, I will show what that looks like in NetSuite. Hold on. Yeah, here. Okay. So on my screen is a record in NetSuite of a payment that was processed, not from the opportunity that he was just working on, but this is one that I did earlier. So this is what they look like in Salesforce. It's a revenue record that has an award for the payment amount that's here, where the money is going. This is the allocation where the money is going to. And you can see there's 2 lines for the withdrawal of the overhead amount and then another deposit into your operations designation for that same amount. So that's how they look like in NetSuite. Also, should say the award itself, the actual opportunity itself, also gets created in NetSuite. Here is then this is what they look like as well. These are just awards in NetSuite, and they've got the award number that is in Salesforce. They get created. This gets created automatically when the first payment from that award is processed. And it's also got some notes here about exactly where it came from. This part here is fairly basic, but it is referenced on here as that award, which is this one. So that's what happens in NetSuite for the when the awards are marked as paid.
Natalie has a question.
Yep.
And she's asking, do we need to set program area allocations through this process? My first reaction would be yes. I'll let Janya pipe up on that one.
All right, so yes, so each program area is a fund in Salesforce. So I'm sure when they go back to Salesforce, they can overview this, but program areas are a fund, a child fund of a project or a program that is a parent fund. So yeah, any allocations that need to be split amongst program areas, you would ideally, I think, do through Salesforce. It's possible for the finance leads to move them afterwards, but it just creates more work. And then it would be nice to see on the award record the actual final destination of those funds. So yes, allocate between program areas in Salesforce.
Yes, and I apologize. That's probably my terminology there. I am so used to saying fund, but the funds here are representative of program areas that are beneath projects. Again, we'll have our fund training next week, so we'll definitely get into more detail there.
And another question here. What is the order of business for US dollar amounts translated to Canadian? Will the translated amount be calculated automatically somehow in Salesforce? No, I don't believe so. That's a finance question, so let's talk to that. Janya or Chris?
Well, we don't, I mean, when you're creating the proposal, or when you're in the process of creating the opportunity, I guess, in Salesforce, you will know that you're requesting it in US dollars or not. So you would use the foreign currency field for that amount. And there's a foreign currency type. So whether it's US, I mean, most cases it's going to be US dollars, but I think there are other currencies you can select. We don't know how much the Canadian amount is until it's deposited. So it's probably going to be similar to the current system where Emily will have to make the deposit so that we know what that payment amount should be in Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
Before
All amounts in Salesforce, period. All amounts in Salesforce are in Canadian dollars. If I believe what you're saying is somebody comes back later and possibly updates that foreign currency amount field to be the amount that was actually processed in the end in US dollars, but the amount field up above there that's highlighted, that will always be in Canadian dollars.
Yeah, so I think below foreign currency amount and foreign currency code, you would fill in before it's awarded closed won. And then before you change it to closed won, it would have to be deposited to the bank so that we know how much the Canadian amount should be in that top amount field and for each of the payments. Right, Peter?
I'm not sure what you're saying, but you know better than I do what's going on there. But none of the amounts are in US dollars that get processed, right?
Yeah. So all I'm saying is for the finance process, the actual check that we get needs to go into the bank so that we can determine what the actual Canadian amount of the payment is. So on the payment allocation, the amount paid would be the Canadian
Equivalent.
translation, yeah. I don't know,
Okay.
Danae seems to get it.
Are you saying you need to go back and update that?
No, I think it needs to be updated before the payment is marked as paid.
Yes, everything should be finalized in what it is definitely, absolutely 100% going to be before it's marked as paid.
Yeah, in Canadian dollars.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what today is saying. It's more or less how we do it now. Jonathan's asking a question. This may be another one for Janya. How do we track salary recovery on specific awards?
So right now, salary recovery isn't automated because it is captured separately from an award. So the salary recovery is recorded in the financial system it's going to be on a monthly basis. We could easily add a field probably to track the amount of the salary recovery related to an award or to a specific payment. But there's not any automation around recording that because we don't record the salary recovery at the time the payment is received. We record it later on. But if you just want a field to track the amount of salary recovery on an ask, I'm sure that can be just a custom field that we add on. Eric.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And we can add that to our list of things for Jeremy to do. And then from Chelsea, where would we be able to look up the exchange rate of a payment received in the past?
Again, this is where I'm going to sort of answer that sort of the same way that Janya just answered the other question. I would probably have a custom field where you track that exchange rate at the time it was made, and you populate it manually, and then you could look back on it, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now.
Right. And if an award is in a foreign currency and the award is in multiple payments, would the exact total change? So the exact total will change. So can we edit a total award in Canadian dollars multiple times?
Yes, you definitely can. You can continually update this amount, even if it is marked as closed won. So let's mark it as closed won, hit save. You are able to edit that amount, but let's watch what happens with the payments. So let's go ahead and mark one of these as paid as well. So let's say this first one has come in, but the second one hasn't. All right. So now we realize it's going to be $1,100. We can hit save. Oh, sorry. There's a validation rule there that you need to put a description of your changes when you're changing an amount field or end date or things along those lines. Always forget about that one. All right. But we see nothing changed about those payments. So you are going to have to come in and edit those payments manually.
You have to decide what the impact is when you're doing that.
Yep. And as you see, these do automatically recalculate for you the remaining balance, the payment amount received, write-off amount, total payment amount. All of that is being tracked, but we want to make sure that those payments do get updated. And more importantly, below that, those payment allocations. And so we see that's still 600 and 400. I can change this now to 2,000, hit save. Our amounts are good now between the payments and the opportunity amount. And that updated to be the same proportion as well. So you want to make sure that that is what you want it to do. Again, that probably is what you want it to do. But, keep that in mind.
Those payment allocation amounts at the bottom, those are the numbers that go to NetSuite. The numbers on the payment and the total amount on the opportunity, those amounts aren't actually directly entered into the finance system. Those payment allocation amounts are the numbers that go into the finance system.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, when you guys are setting up the awards, it would be a good idea to use a proxy rate, kind of how Danae or the finance leads already do when they're setting up budgets for awards. But you would use an estimated rate. So you would enter 9,000 as the US rate and what you think the most likely Canadian amount will be. So at least you have a closer estimate of the real Canadian amount.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The problem with all this, obviously, is you don't know what the exact exchange rate is going to be until the instant that you make that transaction. So you've got to estimate and update things accordingly.
Yep.
And that
the nice thing is those allocation amounts will stay in sync proportionally to the payment amount. So that is not math you're going to have to do, because I'm sure it's not going to be as easy as changing 1,000 to 2,000.
So that was a good question, Chelsea. And then Ali Roberts is asking, since you need to make a note whenever you revise the amount, does it mean that there will be a list of revisions stored somewhere?
Good question. All right. So yes, you want to put in a description of the changes. And that is going to be sort of free-form text explanation of what you're changing. However, in opportunity field history, the system is actually going to track that as well. And so it's showing you that at exactly 12:03 p.m., Kel Partners as a user changed the amount from 10,000 to 11,000. So, that is not editable by users, even system administrators. So that is going to leave an audit trail of these important fields. And again, this is something you probably want Jeremy to double check at the end of the project. You're allowed to track up to 20 fields per object in this way. And so you want to make sure you're tracking the relevant fields on each object that you would want this audit level information on. So on opportunity, I could probably think of 10 fields that you would want that on. Primary contact, receipt contact, account, amount, date, start date, end date, on and on. So make sure that field history tracking will leave you with that clean audit trail. Same thing on the payments, you can have field history tracking, and so on and so forth.
Okay, something for Jeremy to add to his to-do.
Yes, I mean, we've already set up some, but obviously, once you guys are more in control here, that is something that you guys should know which fields you want in more detail, and it's an easy change to make on the object. All right, so what happens if we want to possibly get rid of one of these payments? If something is marked as paid and gone to NetSuite, Peter, is there some process they should follow to get rid of that payment, to mark it as reversed, to delete it? I'm going to sort of leave that in your hands here.
Payment, we talked about payment reversals a little while ago, a week or so ago. If you reverse the payment in NetSuite, it should come back here and update the payment as there's a reversal date, or sorry, I forget the.
There's a reversed
checkbox there and a date that gets filled in as well. So that was the idea but that's all that happens basically.
Yeah, it will still be marked as paid. It'll still sort of be syncing with NetSuite. So once these payments are in there and marked as paid, you really do not want to delete them or get rid of them in any way.
It's a fact that it was paid. You can't change that fact. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, but the reporting criteria then, if we were to do a report on all payments made across, all opportunities, and not reversed, will have to be one of the criteria.
Mm-hmm. So, note also that all the system does is just mark it as reversed. You kind of have to know what else you want to happen there. It doesn't make a payment. It doesn't change the future ones. It doesn't adjust payments. It doesn't say, well, you reversed this one, but you want to redo it. None of that. That's all up to you.
Yep. So let's say we have the other situation. We have a payment that hasn't been paid, and you possibly want to get rid of it for whatever reason. First, why do you want to get rid of it? That's one question. Second, are you just writing it off? And if so, you can check that written off checkbox, and that will recalculate information back on the opportunity. This will not sync it to NetSuite, as far as I know. So
nope.
All it's doing is going to make the remaining balance drop down to 0, because we've got payment not received, payment write-off amount, and that equals the total amount. So again, if there's more that should happen, that would all have to be manual. But that is one way of addressing these. Another is, let's say we wanted to get rid of this payment and create a new one for some reason. If I try and delete this payment, there are checks in place that are not going to let me do that. Those checks are around those payment allocations. It's saying, I can't delete that payment because payment allocations still exist. So instead, what I would have to do is come to that payment, go in, and again, there aren't a ton of reasons to be doing this, but I just want you to know how to, in case a mistake was made or you have to back something out, delete an opportunity as a whole before it's marked as paid. You're going to have to delete those payment allocations first, one by one. Then you can delete that payment. Again, this should only be used in the case of I completely messed up at the beginning, need to delete out that whole opportunity and all the payments associated with it. None of it has been marked as paid. There are just a lot of steps you're going to have to go through to do that, starting with each payment and all of those payment allocations. All right, let's see what else is on the list. As you probably saw when I was going over the list of stages, there is a stage for canceled. And so if we are canceling out an award, we would just set that stage and hit save. Again, this does not influence anything about that NetSuite integration. So whatever the status of those payments, it's not going to change those. So if you are truly canceling out an award and it has implications for those payments, you're going to need to manually do things to update those as well. All right, going through the list here of what Eric wanted to cover. Oh, there was one around managing award documents in Salesforce and Box. That is outside of my area of expertise. In fact, I don't even have login info to Box.
Yeah, so we talked about this when we're dealing with the grants piece.
Okay.
And it is automation that Peter introduced. So much the same way with with grants, if you need to attach documents to an award object or an opportunity award object, you can do so. Sharing those documents, if you wanted to share them, there is no portal per se for well, you would be able to share them through Box if you wanted to, and you can still access those particular documents directly from within the Salesforce object by looking at the Box connector.
Yep, and sorry, I personally can't demo that, but yeah, it's sort of all within this right here. It's pretty user-friendly and easy to figure out. All right, let's see. Soft credits, we talked about that briefly. You can manually enter people who should be receiving soft credits for any award. In the training, I went over account and contact relationships, though. We did talk about a way to automate this. And so let's say we have an affiliated contact to our organization that is making an award. Let's go to that affiliation. Let's go in, and on that affiliation, we have this soft credit contact checkbox. If we check this off, any award that fake organization makes is going to give a soft credit to Tess Testerson. This is only moving forward. This isn't going to update all of the awards in the past. It's not going to go back and do this on, records that have already been paid, ones that are already in progress, any of that. It's only going to do it from net new ones from today forward, or this second forward after I hit save. And so if we go back to fake organization here, and we went back to that award that I just created, it's not going to be there. But if I created a new one right now, and again, this only works with the award record type, none of these other record types will create these automatic soft credits. And I'm going to be quick and dirty here on this, leave off a whole bunch of info. What's going to happen is if we go to those contact roles, we see that Tess Testerson got the soft credit automatically. So another way of updating soft credits, it can be automated if you have those organization affiliations filled out between the people and the organization. Of course, nothing preventing you from manually adding those as well.
Adam, is this managing the standard contact role?
It is.
Okay, so it's just a user interface for the standard.
When it's full,
object.
It's managing the standard contact role. When you're doing partial, it goes to a partial soft credit object in addition to the standard contact role.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I can explain that more to you
Sure.
if you want. But that probably doesn't mean anything to anybody else on the call, but I'm happy to talk that through with people and what the actual back end of this is doing.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody really cares.
Yeah. It does have implications for reporting, especially if you are doing partial soft credits. Like if for this, I mean, it's such a small award here. If, Tess Testerson were getting $8 of soft credit, and I were getting $1 soft credit, and Peter were getting $1 soft credit. In that situation, your report would be slightly different than if we were all just getting full credit, soft credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a pretty edge use case, I'd imagine, for you guys.
Jonathan has a question. If we mark an award as closed lost, for example, after a proposal is declined, do we need to delete or make any changes to the payments? No, I don't think so.
Nope. Just don't mark them as paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It actually won't let you. So if I were to go in here and try to, if I change this to closed lost and then tried to go and mark a payment as paid, that error that you saw me get before, that's actually a validation rule in place that will not let you mark a payment as paid unless the opportunity is closed won. I think we've gotten through your list, Eric. Happy to go further in any direction if anybody wants to, or if people have questions, happy to start answering those. But that is sort of the basics and not so basics of award management. Again, there is some information we're going to go over in more detail around these fund role notifications and responsibilities, but we're saving that for the funds training. Essentially, the people who are listed in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different roles would get notified under certain conditions. So the director would get notified if there's $1,000 payment or higher to one of his funds. The coordinator would get notified under other conditions, secondary contact for other conditions. And we'll go over sort of what all those rules are. And again, it's going to be part of the online documentation as well, so that, don't expect you to memorize that. And so it will be referenceable if it doesn't make sense, or you're wondering why you're getting notifications about payments coming in for different projects.
Okay. Mary has a question. Sometimes an award opportunity starts with a certain organization, but the payment is actually paid by another organization. So can the original organization be noted as a soft credit?
Okay. No, is my answer there. Not in the way the system is built out. Contact roles, as the name implies, are only for contacts. There is no way out of the box to soft credit an organization. That being said, there are workarounds people have come up with to enable that.
We might call it a, I started talking and the name escaped me immediately. That's a financial relationship between two organizations, right? One is the funder of the recipient organization, and the other one is the name of the actual organization. So it may just be a lookup.
Yeah, it depends on exactly why that other organization is paying for something. We'd have to dive into those requirements in more detail.
Fiscal sponsor, that was the
Yes, there you go. If it's something like that, we could just add a lookup field on the opportunity itself and create maybe additional roll-ups to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more complex than that, we're definitely going to have to really think it through. Like if $5 of this is being paid by, XYZ corporation, and $5 is being paid by fake organization, that may be a little problematic, because payments are inherently tied to the opportunity, which only has one account associated with it.
Okay. Mary, you and I will talk some more about that tomorrow. How about we do that? because it sounds like there would be some additional requirements we'll need to gather around that. So Chris Chan is asking, can we have the user permissions divided between entering opportunity versus entering a payment? Like a user can enter an opportunity but not create a payment.
Yes, you can do that. It gets tricky the other way around if someone needs to enter a payment but not be able to do too much on the opportunity, because the payment sort of automatically updates some information on the opportunity. So we would have to think that through in more detail. But yes, you can definitely have people who are able to create opportunities but not be able to create payments.
Could get tricky depending on the reason why
Yeah.
you're doing that, but that's theoretically possible.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, then they could never enter just like a straight donation,
Right.
because you know, that $10 is coming in as closed won, and that payment is automatically going to be created and marked as paid. And so, yeah, we'd really have to think through those requirements as well.
Okay. So Janya is also asking, are we covering other opportunity types in other sessions? Yes, we are doing donations along with stewardship together in one session. And that is on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, taking a quick look at the other opportunity types, if we could for a moment, Adam.
Mm-hmm. Well, there we go.
Okay, so yeah, we've got gift in kind, which we'll cover, and I know Jonathan has some issues with it being an opportunity record type here. We'll talk more about that, and we'll do the stewardship and donations piece. Fee for service and fund activity, matching gifts. Yeah, I think we can cover. We can cover all of this stuff in the other session. I know that Jonathan and I have gone back and forth about how this is structured, and we may be making some changes in that regard. But we need to talk some more about that. And I think we're having another meeting about the record types tomorrow. So,
yeah. On our training Friday, it is going to be jam-packed of content. We are going over a decent amount of these other opportunity record types. We're going over setting up information in Click and Pledge and processing Click and Pledge payments. And we are going over receipting. So that is definitely a lot of content to cram into 2 hours. We may, you know, at the end of those 2 hours, have to schedule a, you know, additional hour or so, seeing where we end up.
okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Just indicate in chat that you want to ask a question, and then we can unmute you. Might be okay. So Chris Chan to everyone, if there is a procedure ready, can you send it to everyone? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Chris. You're talking about I've unmuted you. You're talking about the procedures that have just been
for entering donation and an award and Click and Pledge.
All right, so we're documenting all of this in screen steps, which is going to be linked directly from within Salesforce.
Oh.
It's not done yet. It'll probably be a living document, and as Jeremy adds more functionality and fields, it'll be added to, but we are documenting the procedures for doing these things.
Yeah, Simon is currently working on some of that Click and Pledge documentation for you guys. So hopefully that'll be ready soon.
Okay, Janya, you wanted to ask a question?
Not so much a question, but I just wanted to point out a different integration feature. So with intercompany grants, so that's grants that are going from TCF to TCI or vice versa. We went over the granting piece yesterday in the training session, but I just wanted to note that when an intercompany grant is created, okay, it's going to send the payment to NetSuite the same as it would for an external grant, but it's also going to create an award the associated award side in the other subsidiary. So I just wanted to point that out. So you don't have to manually create an award. When TCI gets one from TCF, it's going to use the information from the grant and start to populate that. And then what they need to do is mark it as paid, the same as they would for any external award that we were getting, and then set up any milestones that might be related. So just wanted to say that.
I do not know how to demo that. Does anybody want to demo that?
Oh, you don't have to. You don't have to demo it. It's okay.
Okay.
But yeah, Peter set it up so that when a grant goes from TCF to TCI, and that the NetSuite processing happens behind the scenes, and it's approved, it's going to go and create the award automatically. So you just have to. You don't have to do all the whole setup with the award.
Natalie's got a question.
That would happen regardless of whether it was between the organizations too. I mean, any internal grant that is made would create, and it would result in an award also being created representing the incoming amount to the recipient fund.
Okay. Natalie's asking, will future award payments be tracked as accounts receivable for the purposes of financial reporting? And if so, will this be pulled from Salesforce? So, Natalie, I've taken you off mute just so you can, interact with us. The future award payments do not go into the financial system until they're actually paid. If we want to do any financial reporting on future AR or revenue to be recognized, then it would be in Salesforce.
Yep, same with the grants. Nothing happens until you're actually saying that the check needs to be processed, whether it's incoming or outgoing.
Natalie, I've taken you off mute, so go ahead. You're saying that so we don't create a record at the proposal stage for TCF grants to projects? What about tracking deadlines related to proposal submission? Let's try to digest that.
So if it's set up before a grant, an internal grant. So Peter, if they had already created an award opportunity and it wasn't in a closed won stage when we created the grant, could we link it instead to an existing award opportunity rather than creating a new one?
I don't know, we've never talked about that scenario before. Probably, my guess is it wouldn't work immediately, but we could probably make some changes and get that to work. So you'd want to add that to your list of future changes, Eric or Jeremy.
Mm-hmm. Tracking deadlines. Okay. And then Chelsea's saying, if we set up an opportunity for a proposal to a U.S. funder, Chelsea, can you just, you sort of referred back to some other question here. Can you go ahead and ask it?
Am I off mute
Yeah,
now?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I think it's been answered. I was just sort of giving an example of how a common scenario in which we'd set up a opportunity for an internal grant before it's actually awarded. So I think it's been answered mostly.
Okay. Jonathan, I saw that you had another question. Did you want to ask another question via audio? Actually, I'm not even seeing that he has audio access. So let's move on to Ryan for a second. Eric, you mentioned that we could potentially use the pending opportunity for reporting purposes in NetSuite. Is that not the case? Use the pending opportunity. Yes.
There's nothing about an opportunity that would be in NetSuite.
Yeah, there's nothing
until it's actually paid.
It has to be a payment. I don't recall mentioning the pending opportunity for reporting purposes out of NetSuite.
You could certainly report on it in Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Eric.
Hello there.
Hi, this is Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I was just basically, I mean, my question was similar to what Natalie was talking about and what Chelsea was talking about. It's just a lot of times we will be creating the award in Salesforce before the internal transfer and the grant happens. That's a very common situation. And in fact, we may not even know how the donor intends to pay. They may choose to pay from their DAP, or they may choose to pay for another entity that they control, external to Tides Canada. So we'll need to figure that out.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways to do that, I think. Let's talk some more about it, though. Any other questions? Oh, hang on a second here. Any other questions that people have? It sounds like there are a few. Let me know via chat. No? Okay. Well, I think we put a few things on the table here, so that's okay. You know, it's good that we bring these things up and talk them through. And as I said, you know, we can add functionality as we go along, and we'll be relying on Jeremy's expertise in many respects to help us with that. A couple of these, though, are related to workflow that I don't recall coming up in prior requirements. So we'll talk some more through it and figure out how to move forward on them. So unless anybody has any further questions, let's call it a day. We'll thank Adam and Peter and Gerald for walking us through this today, and I'm going to make the recording available later on today via a link, as promised. And if you have any other further questions that come up after the session is over, please feel free to email me, and I'll see if I can work through them. All right?
All right. Talk to everybody later.
Okay, thanks, everyone.